Hey guys, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another video for you. And today we're going to take a look at the NZXT Flow Elite, or the NZXT Elite Flow. Now you might be a bit confused because they haven't actually launched that model case yet. They've either launched the Elite or the Flow. So I've taken it upon myself to bring us the case they should have launched. And effectively what that is the Flow didn't come with front fans. So I've added two 140mm front fans, pretty much the same as they would have put in the Elite, in the front. But then what I've also done is I've added 320mm fans, which are the F120s, and we've put one of the 120s in the toilet, so the toilet fan. We've put another one in the roof for a little bit of airflow because I've used my standard test system for testing cases to keep it fair. And then I've added another 120 in the back. Now all these fans are RGB, so you can change them and do whatever you want. Now yes, I do test with the same static kit in every review because that keeps stuff fair. But NZXT did have a bit of a whinge saying because I use a blower card and that's unfair, even though all the cases are tested in the same way. Apparently the case was more designed for open air cards. All right, not really sure why it makes a blind bit of difference considering all of the cases are tested the same. So what I did is I had a 3080 Vision, and I've used it because it's white as well and it looks pretty. I know the rest doesn't kind of match, but anyway, bear with. So I smashed that in there and I've tested that separately as well. So we're going to have the 980 that we always use in the big thick graphs, and then we're going to do some separate ones with the 3080. But what I've done specifically is tested with and without the lower fan because I genuinely wanted to see whether that toilet fan, as Steve calls it, I'm merely using the terminology that he created, with the toilet fan enabled and disabled to see if it makes much of a difference. So at 1000 RPM, you can see here that without the lower fan, our graphics card temps were a maximum of 52.8. But then what you need to do with that is add a rough 20 degrees onto the top of it because these are the delta temperatures, and we don't show you what the ambient temperature in the room would have been. But effectively what we do is we take the maximum temperature, take the room temperature off of it, and that gives us this. Now with our graphics cards, if you just leave the fans on auto, then the temperatures will normally stay relatively the same because the fan speed will come up and down depending on the loading. So what we do with this is we fix it at 60%, and then once it hits 80 degrees, it will then start to throttle itself to stay at 80 degrees. With the Gigabyte, we actually used 70% because this is like 2,500 RPM. The Gigabyte was... there are two different fan sizes. One was running at 1650, another one was running at 1750. The bigger one in the middle was the slower one, but we set it at 70%, which we'll see in a bit. And then effectively, it's only the case and the airflow within the case that can then change the temperature of the graphics cards. So the 980 with the case fans all at 1000 RPM without the lower fan was 52.8. Flick that lower fan on and then the temperature of the graphics card drops to 49.2. So that's a 3.6 degrees difference just by adding that extra fan in the bottom, just running at 1000 RPM. If you turn all of the fans to maximum 1800 RPM, then without the fan, the graphics card was at 47.3. With the fan, it was at 46.8. So the more you drive the temperatures up the more the fan speeds go up, the difference with the lower fans becomes smaller. So there's only a 0.5 degrees difference. But if you think about it, going from 1000 RPM to 1800 RPM, the amount of airflow that is going straight through that case is why there's very little difference adding an extra one there. There's not a massive amount of space between the front and the actual graphics card, even with this one fitted. So very small margins. When we move on to the 3080, this was the one that NZXT seemed to favour because it was an open frame design, more accessible design, not a blower card, which is fair. But the reason why we use a blower card is it's a worst case scenario. And if it's a worst case scenario, and you see the orders that the cases sit in that graph, you know when you get it with your graphics card in it, it's going to perform a bit better than that. It will still be in the same order, but you know that fairly we've done everything the same, and that's the way they sit. So, but anyway, we broke protocol, we smashed the 4080 in there. Now at 1000 RPM, you can see that we had a 52.3 degrees without the lower fan, but with the lower fan, it was 49.4, and that's a 2.9 degrees difference. If we were to increase the static fan speed of the graphics card, the difference was smaller. If we were to decrease the static speed of the graphics card, the difference, actually, we were on the pretty much of the cusp with this, where 70 was a sweet spot. 60 meant it got to 80 degrees and then started to throttle fairly quickly. 65, it was like almost at 80, but 70 seemed to be a very, very nice sweet spot within this case to get some decent temperatures. Don't forget, these are the deltas. So you add a 20 degrees, 21 degrees onto the top of these, you can see where the numbers kind of come from. Maximum RPM though, as you can see here, 47.5 without and then 46.2 with. So there's a 1.3 degrees difference between the two. But here's the weird thing. If you go 1000 RPM to 1000 RPM, and then the difference between the two, the 3080, there was a 2.9 degrees difference between with and without. With the 9080, there was a 3.6 degrees difference from with to without. So, my original card that we tested with actually preferred the lower fan better than the 3080. Who'd have thought it? Anyway, I'm having fun with this. Mainly because it's kind of why we designed the setup in the way we did do. Not for a toilet fan, but it actually, we put quite a bit of thought into it. And it's just a shame that we do need to change the hardware soon. So this was just a bit of fun. NZXT didn't ask me to do this. NZXT did send me the fans. They didn't ask me to change the graphics card for the testing or anything like that. I actually did this because in reality, I wanted to know myself the difference between the two. And I'm actually kind of happy that this did see a tiny difference between the two. But if you take a step back, you can see the difference between the two graphics cards is actually quite slight. So when you have your system at home, you can see that there won't be a great deal of difference in relationship to my temps. The only thing that I would say is I might change the toilet fan RPM speed and maybe link it into graphics card temps, or have a slightly more aggressive fan curve. All of our fans were linked so that they all run at the same RPM. But I think you could, if you wanted to, have your case fans running slightly slower, but then use the toilet fan for a little bit more graphics card direct air. So you could have it ramp up slightly sooner to chuck air in at your graphics card. What I would say though, is I do think that the Flow Elite is something that NZXT should be producing. You need that front ventilated area with the fans from the Elite, because the fans from the Elite, although I never got a chance to test it, but I have looked around at the other guys, the flow, the airflow that you get with the glass panel at the front is never enough, and it is so limiting. It does look pretty though, 100%. We can all agree that glass front looks very nice, but I think you would agree that the meshed and then halo RGB fans from the Elite in the mesh look outstanding as well. Performs very well as well. Let's bring the 1000 RPM fan tests back up, and you can see that compared to all the other cases, you can see it's right down in the thick of the other cases in the graph. It's performed very, very well. So the only thing that was limiting it in the past was the fans, which was exactly what I said. It needed better fans in the case, and it should have come with fans in the front. So if you've bought the Flow then you can see the results that you're going to get if you put some decent fans in it. And you've also got my advice about the fact of putting a more aggressive fan curve on the toilet fan, and you're probably going to be able to get away with running lower fan speeds on the other fans within the case. I think this setup looks very, very nice and performs very well as well. It was just kind of hampered at launch by the choices that NZXT made with the fans to bundle and lack of fans in the front. So, if you fancy a making your case look like this, then you can do. Yes, I know people are going to say that the cables across the top of the graphics card don't look very nice. I agree they don't look very nice, but the power supply that I've got in it doesn't have any straight 8 pins to 8 pins. They've both got daisy chains, but I've run 2 separate cables, so I have 2 loose daisy chains in there because the graphics card won't start with a daisy chain. Or, you know, a single one with the daisy chain. It just didn't want to work. So that's why we've had to do it that way. So yes, it doesn't look pretty, but this isn't a build show off. This is about us saying nice fans, better airflow, better performance. Should have been like this from the start. But very, very nice. Hope you agree. Please let me know. Also, I'd really like to know if you have bought one of these and if you have built in it. If you have, let me know on Facebook, let me know on Twitter, tag me in something on Instagram. I'd love to come and have a look. So, that is it. The NZXT case that they haven't made but they should make. We're going to call it the Flow Elite. Or we're going to call it the Elite Flow. Or should we call it the TTL edition? You decide in the comments underneath. But for now at least, this has been Tiny Tom Logan having a bit of fun with you. Having a bit of fun with you? I don't know. Anyway, out. Ding! Love you, sis.